Ah, hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good morning, good morning. If it's working, wait to see people show up in the chat here. Sunday morning, what's up, folks? Hello, hey. It's Pete Thorn, live from my humble abode. You guys hear me okay? I tried to turn up the microphone this week, and I think it should be a little bit better. Sam is the first one to comment. Sam Pick says, have a great Sunday. You too, Sam. Hope you are well. We got New York City. And we got Brandon McBride says, hey. And Austin Steele, what's up, people? Brazil. What's happening? Portugal. It's good, it's good. John says, greetings or things. Yes, and hello from Holland and Munich and Detroit. What's up, Detroit? How's everybody doing this morning, or this afternoon, or evening, wherever you are? I'm just going to get on Instagram here really quick and do a live story. Instagram story, not live. We're live on YouTube, story on Instagram. Tell people to come over here and hang out for a second. And you guys can hit me up some questions and stuff. Greetings from India. What's up, India? Oh. Sorry, guys. One sec. Hey, folks. Come on over to YouTube. I'm doing a live Q&A right now. If you have time, love to have you there. Done. Thank you for being patient. Okay, I'm going to back up a little bit here on the questions, and let's see. First question I see here is somebody's asking about what's the most reliable gear. That's an interesting question. I mean, one of the things I love about the circuit guitars and amps is how reliable they are because they're so overbuilt. That's just kind of how John is. He overbuilds things and uses the best components and stuff. So I've found them to be very reliable. You're still only as reliable as your weakest link, which is generally tubes with amplifiers and rigs in general. Really, I would say like the most unreliable things in your rig are your cables and tubes, because you don't really have control over where the tubes are coming from. You just got to get the best you can get these days and stuff. So one good thing to know is that if your amp is working and sounding good, don't retube it. if generally these days, and most of the amp guys I know, like John and Dave Friedman and stuff, if it's like an amp seems to be functioning well and sounding good, don't just change the tubes to just change the tubes, because you might end up with a set that's unreliable and then they'll fail you on a gig or whatever, So that's a good one to know. And for the Suramps, generally what I do is I carry around a matched set that's matched exactly the same as the ones that are in the amp, which is come in real handy sometimes. If I have a set, I've only had a few sets of power tubes go bad, like kind of on the gig over the years. But when they go bad, then you just pull the old ones and pop the new ones in, because the BIOS will be exactly the same. So sometimes it's good to get like if you're buying power tubes for your amps, it's good to buy, like if it's a 100-watt amp, buy 8 at a time, all matched to the same spec. And then, it's more money obviously, but you're going to need them anyway down the road, and then you'll be covered if you have a set fail on the gig. Charles says, what hobbies do I do on the road? When I'm on the road, I've been so lucky, man, to tour the last few years outside of the country in these really interesting places like Japan and France and stuff. Mainly Japan and France is where I've been for the past 4 years. And there's so much to see, and do. It's just really great. So I get out and walk a lot, and just walk for miles and miles and miles, and just kind of try and get lost in cities and stuff, and just see what there is to find. Basically, I'm not like a big gallery guy, or you know, so I love to ride bikes. So it's like sometimes if you can like rent a bike and then ride around the city, that's an awesome way to see the city. It just feels like kind of like more like you're a resident or something. So I love to ride bikes. I go to the gym these days, so like I always do that in the hotel or whatever if you're somewhere. It's helpful. And yeah, just I mean, it's hard to not be completely entertained when you're in a place like Japan or something because it's so fun in a city like Tokyo. You can just kind of walk around, not do anything in particular, and have a great time. Hey, what's up, Ontario? Um, I got a. Which would you get, the Helix or the Headrush? I don't know. You gotta look at both of them, see which one's right for you. I should mention I got a AX8. I haven't checked it out yet, but I have one. So. Uh, Somebody says there's fizz in the audio. I wonder if the mic is distorted. I turned it up because last week somebody was saying it was quiet. I'm just going to look at the level in the mic here and maybe just back it down a hair. Just a little bit, just in case there's distortion or something happening. It looks so low on the meter here. It's like not, I don't know. I'm using this program called Wirecast, and I know it doesn't sound great, so I'm sorry about that. Somebody says, have you played the BE50? I have not. Yeah, I know Dave came out with that new amp. I haven't tried that amp. It's a 3-channel BE style situation, I think, with full clean channel, and it's got a resonance control on there that you can adjust and stuff. AC30 or any amp on the floor, tilted or on a stand for live performance? That's a good question. I generally find with a combo like an AC30, because they're blowing out the back too, you don't really have to worry about the tilting as much. I mean, an AC30 tilted at your head is a pretty like sort of orally penetrating experience. It's like an ice pick in your ear. It can be. But I would say most of my experience with combo amps is that, you know, because they're going out the back and the front and everywhere, that they kind of spread in a nice way. You get the sound all over the place. Whereas with 412s are more the thing I have a hard time with. Sometimes I've angled up sometimes I'll angle like 212s, closed back like I've used a lot of closed back 212s over the last few years. And I've angled them up. Even I remember I was on tour with Melissa Etheridge, and I used a hockey stick. So it was like that, like just the stick was under the front of both the cabinets, lying on the ground, and just angling them up a little bit, and it looked kind of cool. That worked pretty good. Somebody else is saying there's fizz in the audio. Let me know if this still seems bad. I could like turn off the stream for a second and then start it again and see if it fixes it. I don't know, because I can't hear it. It sounds like there's wind on the mic. You know what? My computer fan was going, and I think it shut down now. You know, the Mac fan was blowing like crazy. It's probably causing problems. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to try and go faster here on questions so that I get to more. Have I ever tried the Blue Guitar amp? I have not. That's that little 4-channel amplifier in like a pedal. I haven't, but I've been intrigued, and I talked to the guy that made it at NAMM last year, and he also had a IR pedal that hosts IRs that he made, and that looked really cool. I wanted to try that. So it looks cool. I haven't tried it yet. I know Jennifer Batten, who's a friend of mine, really likes it, and he's on tour. Okay, let's see. Seems to be a lot of discussions about the importance of guitar theory while learning. What's my thoughts? Also the importance of ear training. That's from Richard. I think that you can never know too much. You know, you can always forget things. Like, for instance, just put the guitar in an alternate tuning. If you feel like you know too much theory, you know, tune it to an open chord or do something, and then everything goes out the window anyway. So there's always ways to get away from knowledge if you really want to. Ear training is incredibly important, though. I think, you know, you want to be able to hear when another guitar player or musician's playing, and be able to go, oh, that's a such and such chord, you know, and be able to find all the notes and stuff. It's really important, and also just to be able to learn licks and, you know, songs and stuff like that. Somebody says, "Does DV Mark ever reach out to you to demo some of their gear?" I believe they did actually at one point. I don't really do other amplifiers since I have my own Sir amplifier. That's why you generally don't see me making demos for other companies and stuff. And that was a decision I made back when we did the amp around 2008. It was like, well, I have an amp with my name on it. I can't really go out and be sort of talking about other people's amps, and it just doesn't feel like ethical or something like that. It feels like it would be a weird thing. Now, I have thought often that I could do maybe completely different amplifiers, like Supros or something, like combos, or amps that are way out of the style of what the PT amp is. But to be honest, there's just so many pedals out there to do, and other types of YouTube videos to make and stuff, that I haven't really felt this great need to like get deep into demoing amps. Oh, somebody says, looks like I'm broadcasting low quality, 240p. Yeah, I think I am, which I missed that. So guys, I'm going to stop the stream and then I'm going to start it again, and hopefully that doesn't screw up things. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? Should I start it and stop it again? I'm just hoping it doesn't get screwed up. I think I can do that. Or maybe I can do it on the fly. Change. Sorry guys, I'm still figuring all this stuff out with streaming and stuff, and I think I did start it at 240p, which was kind of dumb. Well, I don't know, maybe I should just leave it for this one. I don't want to stop it and then have like another video start and then that video gets uploaded too, so this one's just going to be kind of crappy quality. Sorry about that. Next week I'll get it together. At least I got the mic a little louder this week. And the fan's still running on the computer, so I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about that. It just wants to... damn fan on my laptop. It's like these Macs, sometimes you want to record acoustic guitar or something. The laptop's just like, whoa, I'm going to blow this fan now for the next half an hour, and that's the way it goes. I'm not even doing anything intensive, so I don't know why the fan would be on. It's not like I've got other programs open. Anyway, sorry. Get out my technical weeds here. Can I point to an artist with whom I feel has brought out the best in me as a guitar player? Oh man, I mean, so many. Pretty much everybody I've worked with, you learn something from all those people. Certainly playing with like Don Henley or something makes you just play at the top of your game. You just are trying as hard as you can to do a good show or whatever. Melissa Etheridge was great because she really is open to mistakes and open to trying things in different ways and jamming, and so that really helps to to stretch out songs and kind of stretch out your playing and stuff like that, and just experiment. And it makes you feel really comfortable to do that. So that was nice as far as like improvising and stuff. She was really great, and of course Chris was amazing for just the thing about learning his music and songs is that first of all they're amazing songs, but second of all there's so no rules as far as the music goes. Really creative. Obviously like old Soundgarden and stuff, just crazy. And then sometimes him showing you how. I've got videos of lessons of him teaching me like how to play Soundgarden songs, certain things that I just couldn't figure out, and then he'd show you the tuning, and then he'd show you how he did it, and you'd be like, oh, that's how you did it? It's like it was never that hard, but it was like really difficult to figure out because those guys would constantly be using different tunings and just being very creative. So that really stretched my, my sort of like playing heavy riffs on the low E string but up high around the 12th fret, as opposed to doing the same thing lower on the A string or 5th string, where the root note would fall there. Like no, it sounds different when you do it on the low E and you do it up high and bend, and that was a big part of the Soundgarden sound. So that was really interesting, learning stuff like that. Most Spinal Tap moment on stage. I remember when I was 14 and doing at a gig, and I stepped up from I was playing at my junior high, and I stepped up from my big solo, and I'd walk just a little bit too far from the amp, and the cord pulled out. So, oh, this is no sound. That was pretty dumb. That's when you learn, like, oh, you should wrap the cord through the, handle on the amp or whatever, not just through the strap on the guitar. When I'm on the road, do I have a guitar tech? Yeah, I've had the same tech in both France and in Japan for the different gigs that I've done there for like years. So it's great because you go over there and those people are consistent. My tech in Japan is a guy named Shu. He's young. He's like probably like, I don't know, 20, I want to say he's like 24, 25 years old. Oh. And he's like the best tech. He's so on it and thinking. He's like my brain, like outside of me. Like, I think of something and he's like there doing it already. It's really incredible. And he's just really ambitious and takes it really seriously. And it's almost like when something goes wrong, if something's wrong on stage, it's like he can hear it instantly. He's like right there and he just runs out. And, it helps me. It's like he's a really amazing guy. So he's been great. Okay. Having problems with somebody says people are trying to be nice, but you're just not going to like it. Is that the video, right? I understand. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm sorry, I don't think I should stop it because I think if I stop and start it again, it's going to upload as 2 videos. So we'll just deal with it for this week. I'll get better at this. Have I ever done demos for Bondi effect pedals? Yes. Or Strymon Overdrive. I haven't tried any of the Strymon Overdrive stuff. Those guys didn't contact me when they make nice videos of their own, so maybe they're not like that concerned with getting me to do a video or something. I don't know. But I've made videos for lots of the other Strymon pedals. And the Bondi, I did the Sick As years ago. Did a video for that and loved it. Okay. Crappy quality but good conversation, says William. Sorry, guys. Next week I'll make sure it's in 7. I think I've done 720 every week. Okay, next album release. So I'm trying to finish up an album with Holly Henderson right now, and we have like one more song to record, and then we're doing some vocals and brushing up on another tune this week, and that's it. And then after that, for the rest of the month, I'm going to work on my own record. So my goal is by the 15th to be done with Holly's record, and then go into 2 weeks of recording on my own record. So I've got some stuff I want to work on for that, for sure. So I'm going to see how, by the beginning of December, in like 2 weeks, it is my goal to just see, like, okay, could I knock out like most of the rest of the record in 2 weeks? And then maybe, in December a little bit when I have time, or first week of January, finish up stuff, and then just get it uploaded and like put it out in January. So that's what I'm thinking. I wanted to get it up for NAMM. So working on it this week coming up. Yo, Pete, when are you getting that Johnny Marr Jaguar? I love Johnny Marr, and I do kind of want a Jaguar. I'd love like a Sherwood Green one. I don't know why, that would be cool. On to another one here. Hey, do I use the AX8? Somebody says. I haven't tried it yet, but I have one sitting right over here in the hallway. I'll plug it in and hook it up. Do I think the guitar will survive? Yes. The guitar's been around for a long time. It will definitely survive. The guitar is such a unique instrument in that you can carry it around. It's relatively portable, and you can play it electric, you can play it acoustic. It can sound like so many different things. You can bend on it, which you can't do on a keyboard. It's really expressive and yet portable. It's kind of one of the only instruments that's so expressive and yet portable, and yet it's all you need. I mean, you could make an entire album with just an acoustic guitar and somebody singing. So it's just through the sheer. I mean, it's not. You can't do that with a trombone or even a violin or something. Solo violin is. You can't really make an entire record of somebody singing and playing violin, can you? So it's like with guitar, there's a beauty to it. In that sense, I don't think it'll ever go away. Speaking of pedals, MXR Distortion Plus 1970s version versus now. I have a 70s one, and it's a cool pedal. It's you gotta run it in a certain way. Like you need to run the level cranked, and it's not like the most refined sounding distortion, but it can sound cool in front of an old Marshall. Just does a cool kind of a layering effect on an old Marshall, but not really a pedal like that. I think distortion pedals have come a long way since the Distortion Plus. Am I ever playing in Southern Ontario? Not that I know, but I am. We are announcing these clinics coming up here, which I'd love to talk about a little bit, and hopefully I can get out there to do some clinics. That's going to be more news on that this week. Let's see. Is there a tube amp to use at a gig where it has to be rather quiet? A mic'd tube amp. Well, I mean, amps are so good these days that you can roll with like so many different ones that have great master volumes. I mean, like the PT, even my amp, at 100 watts, it's like I can play it really quiet with the master, and you don't really lose, the tone or whatever. You can sound really good at low volume, and I think there's a lot of amps like that these days. I mean, Dave's amps are good that way too. The BE or whatever, or his little ones, the Dirty Shirley and all that. I can sound good at lower volumes. The problem is getting comfortable with an amp at a lower volume can be difficult. Like if no matter what, if you're hearing the drums louder than you're playing, it's just like it's never comfortable. You're just like, oh, I just want to turn it up a little bit, because naturally you can't. To me, a band needs to settle in around the drummer. Like whatever level the drums are at, you pull in the bass and the guitar around that and kind of turn them up until everything's at the same level, and then you start talking about PA and like bringing the PA in to kind of. But that's not the way people do things these days. They generally like. Drums are a certain level. Nobody's going to complain that much about that. It just is what it is, right? Like it's an acoustic instrument. But then they want the guitar, give me some guitar, and you sound check, and the guy's like, it's way too loud. You need to turn down. It's like, just wait till the drummer starts, because as soon as the kick drum and the crash cymbal comes in, and then as soon as the bass player starts and starts masking the low end, that sort of maybe sometimes annoyingly sort of penetrating mid-range that is a guitar amp alone in a room, all of a sudden makes total sense and sounds perfect and isn't necessarily too loud. So it's a good one to kind of keep in mind, like when you're at sound check or whatever, and they're like, do some guitar, and you haven't played a song yet with the band, give me some guitar or whatever, and you play, and they're like, turn it way down, and you're like, okay, maybe, be cognizant of the fact that maybe you should turn down somewhat, but also be cognizant of the fact that once the drums start and the bass start, the volume you were at might have been okay, and they won't really notice because, so just, I always mark that in my head, like, yeah, sure, tell them what they want to hear, the sound guy. And generally, more often than not, I'm sure you guys have noticed this, it's like whatever level if you're being reasonable and not being obnoxious, whatever level you think it should be at, it's just like, just leave it there on the gig. And then you play the gig and you ask the sound guy after, how was it for you? And I was like, oh, it's fine. Because, yeah, the room filled up with however many people, and they were soaking up the sound and making noise themselves. And the band was playing loud, and the drummer was playing loud. And it's all of a sudden that guitar amp that sounded maybe too loud at sound check was just fine. Okay, pointers for first European tour gear-wise. Spare tubes. Bring a set of spare tubes that are biased the same as the ones that are in your amp. Always have fuses for your amps. Every fuse, you got to carry those. Because if you blow a fuse, you're dead in the water. If you don't, you could have more tubes. But without the fuses, you won't be up and running. Always lots of extra strings and fuses, tubes, all that stuff that can be hard to find too once you're out on the road. It's always easy to find a guitar cable or things like that, but the accessories is kind of where it's at. Extra capos, extra, picks. I'd love to play with Gov't Mule. How was it sharing the stage with them? So fun, man. I did a couple different jams with those guys. One of them was a New Year's at their Beacon was being renovated, so they always play at the Beacon for New Year's. So it was at the Roseland Ballroom, and they wanted to do a Seattle set, so we played a whole bunch of Seattle songs. That's what I think I did 12 tunes with them, something like that. It was Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. And we did one rehearsal, so I flew into New York, and I went to a rehearsal, and that was the first time I'd met the guys, and they were super nice. Warren's just a lovely, lovely guy, really, really sweet. So I got to rehearsal, and it was like they didn't know the songs that well, and I was like, is this gonna be okay? Like I remember kind of like running through the songs, and Jurgen, the bass player, was laughing later because he's like you met the guys, and then you started to kind of MD the rehearsal like right off the gate. But I knew the tunes really well. I'd like practiced all the songs and stuff, and they were a little bit more fuzzy on the sections of the songs. But I didn't realize, like, the thing about Mule that's so amazing is they are an expert jam band, like the best of the best. So after rehearsal, you're like, God, like, I don't know if we got through everything, like if it's going to be okay or not, you know. And then on the gig, that stuff is just magical. Like wherever Warren wants to go with it, you're like, oh, I get it. Like he's a genius at this stuff, you know. At maybe not knowing, you know, like even like things like vocal melodies and stuff. But he's so bluesy and soulful and stuff. He might not sing the exact melody of a cover song that they're doing, but he's going to make it his own. It's going to be awesome. So with the effect, I'd never quite felt like that before, but we played all 12 tunes, and then at the end of the set, it was like, did we just do that? Like, how did we get through all those songs, you know? It was just kind of like the music went through you, you know, and you ended up on the other side, and everything was cool, because even if the song wasn't exactly as you'd rehearsed it or whatever, they're an amazing jam band, you know? So it's like, it was so fun, and I learned a lot from that experience, actually, from just watching Warren. He has a saying, I think, is mistakes are opportunities, and I always like that. Never sounds like a mistake when Warren does it. It always just sounds like he one of those guitar players that like means to do it, you know. It was so fun, and I can't stress enough what a great guy he is. The other thing about Mule is I've talked about this before, but it's that they're using big amps and they've got everything cranked up on stage, and you know, there's 2 Leslie cabinets and all that, and great big bass rigs and stuff. But they don't always play on 10 all the time. They control it with their the dynamics of the way they play, and the volume controls on the guitars and stuff are always coming up and down. And so it's a really great, they've got all this horsepower like in reserve that they can use if they want to, but they don't always use it because they're a dynamic outfit. Yeah. Somebody says, since Chris says, finally got Thornbuckers, just waiting on a harness so you can rip out the PCB. Oh yeah, you got a Les Paul with one of those PCB circuit boards. I always wonder why they started doing that. I guess it's just cost, but it seems like a weird thing. Let's see. Somebody says, Mr. Songwriter says, I know you always use student slate drums for your albums. Will you record your stuff with a live drummer? Actually, there is a live drummer on my last record. There's Toss Panos played on, I think 1 tune or maybe 2, and Blair Sinta's on 2 or 3 songs. There's like 3 or 4 songs off the last record. All the ones above Clear Mountain Mixed, I think, were live drums. Big Mistake. What else? Geez, I can't remember. 10th Street. That's Toss. But this time around, yeah, mainly so far it's Eric Aldenas from Billy Idol's band. He's been playing drums, and Matt Logg is on 1 song. He's so amazing, incredible. Did kind of like a boogie, kind of like a Hot for Teacher kind of thing. One of those, like a Satch boogie kind of thing. One of those. I just wanted to put 1 song like that on the record, so Matt played on that and just killed it. It was awesome. Yeah, mainly I'll probably do, you know, some program stuff on just a song or 2, maybe 3, but the rest of it, you know, there will be at least probably 7 songs there of live drummer. Steve Stevens has played bass on 3 songs, I think, so far. I love the way he plays bass. So, yeah, and he did some programming on some keys and stuff. It's super cool. Let's see. What's good, Pete? What players do I think get the most mileage out of major pentatonics in major contexts? Anyone notable? Well, I mean, the Eagles, you know, always had some killer. I mean, I love the way, like, the simplicity of somebody like Felder or Joe Walsh, you know, playing. So, you know, it's never too many notes or too complicated. So, okay, let's see. What did I learn from Nuno Bettencourt? That guy's a ferocious guitar player. You know what he's got is rhythm, as well as, obviously he can shred like crazy, but it's his groove, and he's super funky. So it's like, you know, he's not unlike Eddie Van Halen in that way, with his, like, the rhythm playing is super cool, and that sort of interjects itself into the solos. Like when he's playing a lead, it's so groovy, and that's what I think a lot of people like maybe they don't have that, you know. And it's like when he's playing lead, it's so ferocious. It's like that you don't lose the pulse, and it's the rhythm is, you know, so cool. And it stays in the solo, if that makes sense. So that's a good thing to remember from or learn from someone like Nuno. George says, Melissa seems like a great person to tour with. So great, dude. She's the nicest person. And, you know, really, the other thing is her system of touring, which every tour is different, you know, and she has a great system. Like even from the beginning of the tour, she would kind of ramp into it. Like, do a show and take a day off, do a show and take a day off, and then do 2 shows in a row, and then take a day off, and then sort of ramp into it with like a nice pace, not put too many back to back, like right in front and burn herself out. She kind of eases into it. And the travel and all that, the way that it's very methodical, like, and thought out. There's never like crazy long drives or just the routing of the tour and everything. And then the food, she's always touring with, generally with her own catering, at least in my experience when I was doing it. She had somebody come out because, you know, she'd had cancer and stuff, was taking her health really seriously, so she would have a catering company come out, and there'd always be like really healthy food and stuff on tour. It was great. What else? What else? Warren Haynes is the man. He sure is. He's so amazing. Most important metal player. I'm gonna go with the most important metal player. Well, I'm not going to profess to be an expert in metal, but I'm going to say that the guy that really took it to another level as far as like exposure and delivering it to a wider audience was Hetfield. You know, we can't deny that he's an amazing rhythm guitar player, writes amazing riffs, and in the last, I don't know, like 30 years, who's been more important than him as far as somebody that really put in, you know, they're the mega band, and he's really the engine as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I know Lars, but, you know, as far as the musical, like, driving that ship, that Hetfield, you know, he's, what would metal be without those guys, maybe, you know? It would be a different thing. So I had a lot of respect for that guy. And the way he plays, you know, he's a ferocious rhythm player. Let's see, definitely try to get Mike Landau on. I think you mean on the Tim and Pete show. I would love to. I've asked Mike about it, and he's kind of, you know, he's like reluctant. It's not really his thing to do stuff like that. And so, of course, I respect that. We just leave the invitation open. The other thing I mentioned to him was I said, you know, you can always veto it. Like, if we edited it up and you didn't like it, we just wouldn't put it out. And he was like, oh, okay. He liked that. So I felt like the door wasn't completely closed. So we'll see. I just, you know, I respect Mike so much, and I don't want to like push it, you know, like, so I put it out there. Maybe I'll ask him in like a year or something again, 6 months. Let's see, how do I go about finding good sound from a new amp or pedal? Really, I just plug it in and then play like for like 2 minutes, you know, and you can kind of tell, right? Like generally within 30 seconds if something's for you. That's what I find. Generally. Best food I've had on tour? Well, Japan is. I love going to Japan because I just love food. I love the sushi, and you know, I can eat a lot of stuff there because I don't eat gluten, so it's real easy when there's a lot of sort of fish and vegetables and stuff like that. It makes sense for me. So yeah, Japan's tough to beat. I mean, I go crazy when I go there eating. I just love it. Do I have a night that I can't get my playing together? Yeah, I mean, sure. But sometimes I find that, like I remember brought up this story a little while ago about doing a show with Five for Fighting in 2001, and we were playing at the Chicago Theater. And I remember being so in my own head about my playing and about the band and the way that just that particular night it wasn't sounding good to me. It wasn't like gelling or something for whatever reason. And then at the end, so I'm all bummed out. And at the end of this song, we got a standing ovation. So the whole crowd just stands up. And I was like so in another zone, not thinking, you know, I wasn't in it. Those people were enjoying the music and I was like somewhere else. And I went like, ugh, your perception isn't everyone else's perception, was what that taught me, you know. It's like, it's because you think you're having an off night or whatever, you know, there'd be one of those nights where people come up to you after and go, God, you were amazing tonight, you played so good or whatever. It's a weird, intangible thing. So you have to kind of remember that when you're in a bad funk on stage. And then I have things I think about too that are like just trying to cut through that crap in my head. And one of the things I think about a lot is the way that Jack White plays guitar, because I love his primitive, it doesn't matter kind of approach, you know. It's like almost like I try and get in like a punk rock mentality if I'm having a like uh, a crisis on stage of like confidence or feeling like my tone's not there or I can't hear myself or I'm not playing well or whatever. I just try and go to like a basic sort of punk attitude. And that helps pull me around and back about what's important, because people don't really care. They're not there to see you shred or whatever. They're there to see you know, a band play music, and they want you to be having a good time too. And it doesn't matter, you know, the people that care about that kind of stuff aren't your audience really, generally speaking. You know, out there at a concert, they just want to have fun. So that's what I do. Let's see here. Someone said, even post-apocalypse, some cockroach will be figuring out a riff. I guess that's a response to is the guitar going to survive? I think you're right. Let's see. Do I have multiple amps in my... Or somebody says, Glenn says, I have multiple amps in my studio. Do I have to switch all the cabling every time? Generally, I just have a long... I'll get a lot of questions about this, like how I switch amps. I have a long speaker cable. One's going to the reactive load, and then I have two that are running out into a live room where I have cabinets in my place. And those speaker cables, they're just long and coiled up, and I can just grab the cable, reach behind the head, and plug it in. That's how I've been doing it. But I have an amp switcher, one of those amp Pete 8x8 amp switchers, and I'm going to wire it up here eventually so that I'm going to have 8 heads and 3 cabinets, or you know, the load and 2 cabinets, all connected to the switcher, so I can select them on the fly. That'll be, you know, over the next 6 months or something, I'll set that up. So many tunings, enough to drive you crazy when learning songs. It's true. Yeah, the tunings can be tough. Like if you don't know, like for example, even just like the Stonesy stuff. If like you ever learn Stone songs and you realize, oh my God, it's an open G or whatever, you know. And it's like, you know, you got to. Fortunately, on the internet these days, just about everything. I mean, even all the kind of really like a little bit more obscure Soundgarden stuff or wacky stuff, I've looked and found the tunings for things when I've had to learn songs. It's generally all out there now. Let's see here. Being a sideman for huge arena versus being a frontman in a small club, which one do I prefer? You know, it's small. The frontman thing is so weird to me because I've only done a few gigs of my own where it's like my set or whatever. You know, like those videos of me playing a Sir or whatever. Generally, it's been playing with bands or other, you know, singers or whatever. But even if you're just talking about like clubs versus big shows, I get a lot of enjoyment out of both. You know, club shows are awesome. Some of the most fun actually is like with a band that you play in a big place, like let's say with Chris Cornell. You know, we played at the Belly Up in Austin, or in Aspen, sorry, in Colorado. There's a Belly Up there, and we played there. And it's like, you know, we put like 300 people in that room. Might have played there with Melissa too, I think. It's a fun stop on tour because it's like, you know, you're used to playing bigger places, or theaters, or whatever you're doing, and then all of a sudden you're in this little club and you need to make all the gear fit and everybody fit. But it's like really exhilarating, actually. It's kind of fun doing club shows with artists that you've also done bigger shows with. It brings it back down to a cool thing where people are like right in your face. It's always cool. Let's see here. Have I ever done, after doing a demo on new pedals, was there any that I end up adding to my pedal board? Yeah, I mean, like the new Ethos pedal, that's like his train wreck pedal. I've only played it once for about 5 minutes. I'm like, this thing's going on my board. It sounds amazing. So that was one. What else? I mean, the Bogner Blue. I did a demo of that, and that's been on my board for a long time. It's not going to be on my new one. I'm just trying to save space, and that's where the Ethos pedal comes in because it's smaller, like a single pedal size format. So I'm going to use it instead as kind of my ampy drive pedal. You know, I like to have a pedal that sort of sounds like amp distortion on my pedal board that I can use in front of my clean channel, my amp, for an alternate to the channel 2-3 sound of the PT100. So that's what the Ethos will be. Hopefully that'll work out good. Somebody else is asking about my bum eye, which I don't want to get into that this week because I did a long thing on it last week, but I tell the whole story. It's called strabismus, and I have a shitty right eye that's not pulling for the team, basically. And yeah, I was like that from birth. Um, let's see. Oh, there goes the chat. See, sorry guys, the damn chat window jumps around. I miss a bunch of questions when that happens. I'm really sorry. I'm going to try and find the spot where I was here. Okay, there. Let's see. Jennifer says she's the only chick in here, and so that gives her some sort of special dibs. Hi Jennifer, what's up? It's true. It's a guy fest. Hi from Toronto, says Charles. All right, time for a beard, says Gary. Gary, I grew a beard years ago, and I'm just not in that mode anymore. Somebody else is asking when's it coming out. I guess about a new record. I'm gonna try for January, like right around NAMM. I'll put it out for NAMM. See if I can make that happen. Let's see. Why do I use the Musicom switcher instead of the RJM? Well, I've used Musicom since 2011. I developed a relationship with that company. They're just nice people, and it's just a good. They like me using their switchers, so it's like, and they've been really good about whenever they come out with a new one. Generally, I get it, and yeah. The other thing about it, like the RJM is awesome. I love that company. I've used the AB box on my old board and stuff from them. And I used to use their RG16, I think it was called, switcher, in my rack. Awesome stuff. It'd be a little too big, I think, for this pedal board I'm doing now, their switcher. It's an awesome switcher, though. Like the ability to route series parallel and all those stereo loops and stuff is super cool. Okay. What else we got in here? Oh, wow. Hi from Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean. That's so awesome. French island. How do you say your name? I think it's Dejims. That's so cool, man. I love the fact that there's people from all over the place hanging out. Awesome. Felder and Walsh, somebody says, who wrote the Hotel California solo? That's Jennifer's question. I mean, I think it was Felder largely had it mapped out. There was a demo that he had done of that song and brought into the band, like basically completed with no vocals and stuff, including the solos, as I understand. Who knows how different they were, because there's some signature Joe Walsh licks in his Hotel California solos. So, but I think Felder really is largely, we got to hand it to him for coming up with that one. Yeah, let's see. Helix and a line 6 stage source. It's perfect combo, says Ryan. Can really feel the difference in the push of an IR. Stage source, is that a cabinet? You know, you guys know more about me than stuff many times here, and you're more up on stuff than I am. I can't keep up on it all, but I think Ryan's talking about a line 6 speaker cabinet that he's enjoying using. It's called a stage source. I'm not even familiar with that. Must be like a full range cabinet made for the Helix. Let's see. Ever go into the studio with an artist just to create? I mean, yeah, all the time, you know. It's like, I love getting together with people and just writing, see what comes out. That's been some of the best times when you don't have an agenda, you know, and you're just doing stuff for fun. Kind of how I write most of my music. I'm not really like thinking like, this has to be the greatest song ever or whatever. You know, certainly when I'm doing pedal demos, it's just like, I don't know, like, how about this riff? And then you do it, and it goes, oh, that's pretty cool, like when you're done with it. It's the most fun when you're not trying too hard. Okay, what else here? Let's see. What do I think of PRS guitars? I've only owned a couple, but they were really good guitars. I had a McCarty way back in the day, which was kind of like, I didn't even have a Les Paul at the time, I don't think. I just had that McCarty. Maybe I had one Les Paul. But I liked the ones that were kind of more like Les Pauls, you know, 22 frets and, you know, glue-in neck and all that. Those were my favorite, PRS style guitars. I had a CE24 too. That was a good guitar. But, I mean, I don't even really remember it. It was 20-something years ago. So it was a cool guitar that I sold to a student. I remember it was a really good guitar, like the tremolo You know, that smooth PRS tremolo stayed in tune really well, and it was cool. Okay, let's see. Does every tube amp hum? And if a guitar is buzzing a little bit without plugging it on an amp, is it normal? Actually, how much? So I think you're saying, is it if a guitar is buzzing like fret buzz without plugging it in, you can get away with a little bit of fret rattle, and then when it's plugged into the amp, and generally, especially when the band's playing, you're not going to notice. It's just it starts choking the tone at some point, so you have to be careful with how low you've got the action and stuff. And I will say also, if you're experiencing fret buzz on your guitar, but you weren't before, if it just kind of comes out of nowhere, you don't need to raise the action. What's changed is the curvature of the neck. So like the action doesn't change, right? There'd be no reason for that to happen. It's actually the neck moving. So if you're noticing fret buzz and it wasn't there like 2 weeks ago, you need to do a truss rod adjustment and get it back to where it was, you know, when it wasn't buzzing. But you can definitely you know, get away with a little bit of fret rattle, I find. You know, that doesn't bother me too much. Most of my guitars, I'm kind of a wuss. Like I use 10s. I've often thought about moving to 9s. And I like the action low. Okay, what else? Do I like mixing greenbacks and V30s in a 412? I think that can be cool with the greenbacks on top because the V30s are louder and more efficient speaker, and they're also got that penetrating kind of, you know, upper mid thing. So if you put them in the bottom and then the greenbacks on top, it can be good. I know Friedman's done that for a long time in cabs, and his cabs sound really good to me. And then you got an option when you go in the studio of what you want to mic. It's kind of cool. How to set pickup height. Generally with a clean sound, I find, and I don't have the bridge pickup all the way up as high as it'll go or anything like that, but generally I like to get it up there pretty good. I like just leave a little bit of gap. I don't have some formula or whatever. I just know kind of visually where I like it. I don't know. And then I listen to the clean sound and try and balance the bass side and the treble side. Great Joe Walsh video about this, actually. I'm sure if you looked on YouTube for Joe Walsh, you know, pickup height adjustment or something, it would pop up, and he shows you how to do it, and it's really exactly the way I think it should be done, which is kind of a clean sound. And then generally on the neck pickup, you've got to back it down lower, and sometimes you got to get that bass side down a little bit from where the treble side is, because it can be a little boomy otherwise. So I do it with a clean sound, move through all the pickup positions and try and balance the volume, you know. And then it's sort of got to be relative of the heights, you know, both if the guitar's got 2 pickups or 3 pickups, you know, they're all going to have to come up and down at the same. If you know what I'm saying. It's just like just listen with the clean sound and try and get the volume. Forget the output right. You know, maybe start with the bridge pickup. So that if it's too high, you know, you're not going to be able to get a very good clean sound ever. It's just like it gets louder as you move it up, and you're just going to be pushing the front end of your amp. So, you know, I like to back it down to the point where I'm not murdering the front end of the amp with level, but not too low. And then I kind of balance the neck pickup after that and stuff, and just listen with a clean sound. Because with a clean sound, it's not compressed, right? No compressor, no distortion or overdrive compressing and evening out the level through the amp. You know, you want to listen with a real crystal clean sound, balance the level with that, and then go from there. Okay, Quentin says, Pete has chicks in here. My channel is one big sausage fest. Mine is too, man. My YouTube demographics are like 98% male, I think. So it's just how it is. There's more and more girls picking up guitar, though, that's for sure. I think that's going to happen. It's bound to happen. Great girls out there, you know, Ariana, Laurie Basilio, amazing guitar players. So some of my favorite guitar players. I went and saw Ariana play a while ago, actually, and Laurie came. She came out, and they were both standing there, and I'm like, man, I'm standing here with like 2 of my very favorite guitar players. It was pretty cool. Speaking of Eddie Van Halen, have I ever met and jammed? I've never jammed with Eddie, but Eddie's a friend of mine now, so I'll tell you just one little anecdote. It was one time I drove up there to his place, to the studio and stuff, and it's the only time this has happened, but I got out of my car, and there was guitar just wailing out of the studio, you know, just blasting. I was like, oh, yes! And I walked to the door of the 5150, and the door was open, and he was standing in there playing in front of me, and it's like, this one of the, I always remember it, and he's just standing there right in front of me, like 10 feet in front of me, smiles at me and never stopped playing, and just kept playing for about 15 minutes. One of the coolest things that's, that I've ever, it was amazing. Um, and he never stopped playing. He's playing through the mains, the big speakers in the studio. The guitar just blasting out like he must have had a cab mic'd in the other room, and just cranked like super loud coming through the mains in the control room. And he leaned over to me at one point. He goes, "You ever do this? You ever slide harmonics?" And he did this thing where he like was hitting a harmonic, but then moving it to a different pitch. And I was like, "No, what's that?" And it was amazing, incredible. And he was playing it was a white Wolfgang with the drop to hell tuner tailpiece thing on it. So, and I believe what it is that it never came out, I don't think, but it's like you could move the pitch of one string from, say, a B to a D, or an E to, like, two preset pitches. You could just flip that lever, kind of like a hip shot almost, that would go on the headstock, but it was on the low E string. So you could get drop tuning like really easily, but not just to D. It's sort of like an expansion of the idea of the D tuner. This was like you could go to any two pitches. So he was playing something, and he'd written a riff around the tailpiece, the drop to hell tailpiece. He'd written like a song that's what he was playing. It was the cool, so he'd be like, I don't know what he was doing, but it was like, and then he'd hit the tailpiece, right? And he's like bending it, much like, and I thought in my mind, I was like, God, it's just like he used the Trans Tram, when he did on the 5150 album, and he was like bending to different keys, and then he'd lock it. He played the thing like it wasn't like just some tool that he used to perform an entire song in a different tuning. It was like he was doing it in the middle of the thing, and he made it so musical. It was amazing. But that was an amazing, amazing day to just stand there and watch him play like that. Just him and me, nobody else around. And yeah, I'll never forget that. He's a lovely guy. He's been really, really, really sweet to me. And I don't, talk to him that much or like see him all the time, but we text, and I always check in with him. I may see him like, a couple times a year or something like that. I'll reach out, and it's been a really special thing for me just to be able to kind of like, connect with a hero like that, and now feel like he's a super friendly person. He's just, like I say, really nice to me. I remember like back 2010. I'd met him in 2009. In 2010, he was going to see Jeff Beck, and Dweezil was opening. Dweezil Zappa Play Zappa was opening, and so he's long time friends with Dweezil and stuff. And he hit me up and goes, "Yeah, I'm going to see this Jeff Beck show. I'm going to see Dweezil," and he was like texting me. He's like, "You want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, I'll talk to Dweezil," and then like a couple days later he hits me back. "Okay, you're going. You're going to be sitting with Janie and me and stuff." It's just like, God, I can't believe like my guitar hero's like, it's so cool, and like asking me if I want to go see Jeff Beck with him. It was just like amazing. So he's just been a really really, really sweet dude. Can't say enough good things about him. Takes a lot of, people say shitty things about him on the internet and stuff, and he's, we've all had our ups and downs and stuff, but I got nothing but good things to say about Eddie Van Halen. Okay, so I'm gonna move on here. Randy Rhoads, I love Randy Rhoads. He was another one that just, that time of guitar was crazy. He was so young too. When did he pass away? He was like 22 or 3 or 4 or something. He was so young. And amazing. He was totally unique too, like his tone and the fact that he triple tracked all his solos. Like that's I've done a little bit of that, and it's really cool. It's like, his solos were so they were planned and written and thought out and melodic, but that's kind of classical. It's like a lot of improvising going on. He played like a classical guitar player, really, in many ways, like, but in a rock context. It's so cool. Looking for a clean sound, like on Into the Ether. I think I used to use a treble boost. I used a treble boost on the song Monster Movie. That's like that lead guitar part, a real snotty sound. I love treble boosters for that. Treble boosters definitely do, like, that Brian May thing or whatever. It's like if you want a cutting lead guitar, soaring kind of, sound, a treble or mid boost is a really, really cool thing. Check out the BAE Hot Fuzz pedal. It's got a built-in treble booster, and then it's got a killer kind of silicon fuzz in it as well. And both of those things on at the same time, it's like I almost like them on at the same time more than any other sound in that pedal, because the fuzz is real thick and fat, and then the treble booster is kind of snarly and top end. But when you put them on together, oh my god, what a lead sound! It's really cool. Okay, what else here? Kemper profile question. If I take a Kemper profile of a clean amp, play it with an overdrive pedal into the Kemper, does it sound and play the same? I've never done that experiment. That's a good question. Like, profile an amp and then listen to the amp and then listen to it with a pedal in front. It technically kind of should. I mean, I don't have a great. I've wondered that often too. Generally, they're going to design the input of a device like the Kemper or the Axe effects or units like that. They're going to have like the same impedance, kind of input as a guitar amp, because they want it to respond like an amp. And generally speaking, I've heard most people say when they use pedals into their Axe effects and stuff, it seems to respond like you would think it would. Yeah. The one thing to keep in mind is that, and this is an important one. I was talking about this with Dave Friedman this week. There's A to Ds in things like Kempers, and there's often units with buffers, for example. You have to be careful about like the front end of certain devices not clipping, because it's not hitting a tube first, right? When you're going into a Kemper or going into a Helix or whatever, with a guitar amp, you're hitting a tube, and you can nail a tube with like 20 dB of gain, and it's just gonna sag and distort and compress. Whereas if you hit the front end of a digital unit, at some point you will clip it going into the. Now they build headroom into the things and stuff, and they think about these things, but if you're using some sort of brutal fuzz or clean boost or something where you're just nailing the front end of a digital unit, it doesn't even matter what it is. It could be like like let's say even a pedal switcher, right? Many of them have buffers in the first stage to kind of buffer the signal, and you can distort those buffers. Some of them more than others. So just be aware if there's some weird tone going on, and you're using a drive in the front end. Not these units. They don't clip and distort like a tube will in the first stage of an amp. Okay. Ever had second thoughts before buying gear? Like I could have used that money for other stuff. Yeah, definitely. That's a concern. Certainly when I bought expensive pieces, like I'm the same as everybody when it comes to that. It's like, oh, do I really want to spend? It's like the anxiety of but then it's kind of exciting too, gear acquisition syndrome. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Any cool stories about Ian Thornley? Yeah. Ian's awesome. He's a wonderful guy. I'll just tell you about the quick story about when we did those the Surge shows in 2014 for the first time Ian kind of came down and played at NAMM and all that. And there's those great recordings. I'm so happy with the way that show came out. We played Blown Wide Open and that song, and what else did we do? Control. So he was coming down to do it. He'd hooked up with Sir, and I had offered to. I was like, if he's going to come down, if he needs somebody to play, I'll put a band together. Because I was going to play at the show anyway with my people. I said, we'll just learn like 4 of his tunes or something, then he can just get up and play. Which, some people may not be comfortable with, but he was open to that idea, and we talked on the phone. He goes, I don't know, man, what do you think we should do? And he let me basically pick the songs. I couldn't believe it. He's like, I don't know, you tell me. So I said, well, I don't know, like, what about this, like, and he was like, yeah, that sounds good, let's do that. So I was like, oh my god, like, I just picked, it was ridiculous that he let me do that, I thought, not ridiculous for him to do it, but I was just like, he's so, trusting, or and hands off. And it was like, okay, so I rehearsed the band twice, and he came in at sound check. We did 2 shows because it was like a Wednesday Thursday thing, I think, at NAMM. And he came in at sound check, and the stage didn't sound very good. Remember that it was this hollow stage, and we had monitors. He was used to singing on in-ears, but we just had wedges. And so when you watch that show, he had none of his own gear. The guitar was not his. It was like a Sir that they had set up for him, and obviously a great guitar because it's a Sir, and it was set up right there at the factory for him. But still, not his instrument. None of the gear was his. He plugged into a PT-100, and we got a bunch of pedals for him. Like I brought my Empress tape delay, remember that, and then most of the other pedals were Sir pedals, I think. And he plugged into this pedal board that wasn't his, and we had a short sound check and kind of played through a couple things, and it was like, okay, I guess that's it. And then we did the show that night. So when you watch those videos, the sound of him, it's like he's tuning, he's beginning of Blowing Wide Open, I think. He's like literally playing that sound kind of almost for the first time, and then you see him bending over and kind of like playing with the pedals, but he's playing the whole time, and we're just jamming, kind of like making this bed, and he's really like tuning in everything. And then he starts singing, and it's perfect, like his vocals are like ridiculous. So and then magic just happened. Like, I mean, I loved the way that show came out, those 4 tunes. We'd never played together before, and it just kind of was this thing that happened. It was like, holy shit, that was some good chemistry. But his ability to get comfortable in that situation, play a whole rig that wasn't his, and get some amazing sounds out of it, and I mean, his fingers, it's just like the dude's just made to play guitar, and then to be able to sing like that, like in setting where he wasn't really that comfortable because he's used to in-ears, and it was like it didn't sound great on stage. I remember that. But when we settled into playing, he started singing like that. I was just like, holy shit, like the gates opened, And he's an amazing musician. He really is. Just it was like pro stuff, just like world class, incredible. So, and he's a lovely guy too. Really cool Canadian dude. Let's see. Do I generally use a boost in front of my amp? Generally, I have some kind of boost. I've had a Coco boost on my board for years, and that's always nice because you can get the mid boost if you need it, or the clean boost. It's always nice to have some kind of pedal you can clean boost with, just in case you need to get a little bit louder. My amp has a nice MOSFET boost built in, so I've always got that too. I think I need to get some water. Be right back. Just give me 1 second. All right, thanks so much. Somebody says, do I know Charles Scott? Is that, I do know Charles Scott, actually. I wonder if it's the same guy that we're both talking about. Let's see, do I break new speakers in? Only through using them. Only through just kind of like, I don't really worry about it that much. Just kind of like, so in other words, I don't do some sort of like, how you use the Variac or whatever, put the speakers on there. I've generally never done that. Okay, let's see, found my 5-minute lessons again. Awesome, says Jeffrey, thank you. I want to do more of those. There's never enough time to do everything. More guitar lessons, always. Patrick says, how noticeable was it at GitCon that a lot of these guys don't play in front of people? Well, I mean, it's true. There's different types of guitar players out there, and these days it's like some people play more in the studio, some people play more live, some people do more internet stuff. It's just like but it's all valid. I do worry like a little bit with the YouTube, it's always good to just get out and play, like to play in clubs and stuff like that. But everybody there was lovely, and and most of the people, whether like I mean, shit, man, I haven't even played live that much in the last few years compared to somebody like Phil X, who's like, dude's constantly on tour and playing out and playing gigs and stuff. So we all have our varying levels of, experience, and then a lot of people that are maybe doing the YouTube thing, maybe that's their outlet now, for playing and stuff. It's like a different, because they can't get out and play that much, or there's not as much live music happening in their area or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think it's all valid. Everybody there was lovely, and they all had unique and cool takes on playing guitar and also on the YouTube thing. And made a lot of great friends there. It was awesome. Okay. Let's see. Let's see here. Sorry. Just looking through the questions, trying to find. Somebody says that they have a camper, and it's pretty much the same thing as long as you or whoever did profile the amp well. That's the question. Like, do pedals respond, as you would expect in the front end of a digital model, or like the Kemper? This guy says he thinks so. Okay. Let's see. Do I have any plans for new shows with Tim Pierce? Yes, we were supposed to film one on Friday, but Tim got a session, so we couldn't do it that day. He's a busy guy, So and sometimes I get busy, and it can be hard to do it. But we got a couple people lined up. I want to do one with Laurie for sure, Laurie Basilio, and we're talking to George Trips as well from Way Huge about doing a show with him. So that'll all be coming up. I'd love to get it going on a more regular basis. Okay. Let's see. How do I break new speakers in, or don't you bother? The speaker question again. I just play through them, really. That's it. They don't really bother me. I mean, I use kind of warmer speakers anyways. I use greenbacks, and new greenbacks generally sound pretty good to me. They could be a little fizzy. Could beat them up a little bit, but just play loud for a few hours through them. They tend to sound pretty good to me. Okay, what are my thoughts on Find My Gig or places that help you find gigs? I mean, it's all valid, I don't know that any of those are. There's like Jam Card and these different. Oh, which reminds me, I was going to sign up for that. I didn't yet. Yeah, I mean, it's all valid, It's like, you never know. You might as well get in on it and try it. Like these sort of internet musician referral services. I mean, it can't hurt, right? Like, see if you can find a gig. Any way that you can kind of get your name out there is valid, and then some of them are going to work, and other ones are. It's never a waste of time, You never know. The gigs might come from the most unlikely places. Kind of like the old days. It just used to be like total word of mouth. Where maybe it was like a paper advertisement, like in the recycler or whatever we used to have here in LA, where it'd be like an ad or in like one of those Rock City News or whatever. It used to be print ads where you'd find gigs, and then maybe sometimes through like a headhunter kind of person for the kind of the upper tier gigs. And now it's like there's all these other ways that, like, however you can get your name out there is valid. And the gigs might come from the most unlikely place. Like you could be playing in some club, and there might be nobody there, but maybe the sound guy, that's working the club or whatever, saw you playing. And is like, oh my God, that guitar player's amazing. And then they hear about a gig, and then you get a gig through that. So it's always a really, really important thing to play your best and be a nice person, be on, and totally deliver, like, even if you don't think the gig means anything. 'Cause there's always somebody there watching, So it's important. Let's see. Do I manage to have meaningful relationships with so much travel and work commitment, or is that a sacrifice you need to make? It's a great question, Gil. It's difficult. Relationships are tough when you're a musician. That's just how it is. But, I got a lot. Most of my friends I'm not married, but a lot of my friends are all married and have kids, and they make it work. I've got multiple examples in LA of people that, have families, and so it can happen, But it is hard. It's hard. I mean, being away all the time and, travel and, You get issues like of trust that come up, and just issues of people just not wanting to deal with you being gone all the time. And that goes for friendships and stuff too. You lose track of people. It's like it'd be hard. It's hard, but it can be done. That's my optimistic attitude. Tone begins with a JCM 800, says the Sonic Solution. I would go as far as just to say good Marshall. Good old Marshalls are tough to beat. That's my home base as far as rock guitar tone for sure. How do I deal with wear and tear on my fingers with lots of playing? I don't have a lot of problems these days. I know people have different problems with calluses and and then there's also the whole tendonitis and carpal tunnel. I've been really lucky the last few years. My hands are in really good shape, so just kind of in good shape. But you never want to push it too far. That's for sure. You get to the point where you've got a real problem and you can't play for a while. Let's see. Trying to move down the questions here. Going to take a few more and then I will probably go. Let's see. James says if I want to buy just one pedal board supply for everything, including line 6 and something else, with 120 volt and 240 volt input, what would I recommend? I'm using the Friedman supplies on my new board. So Dave, I'm going to make a series of videos. There's going to be 3, I think, about this new pedal board that's being built for me. Actually, I'll work on one of the videos today, I think. I'm using the Friedman power supplies. I've used G-Lab for years. They were great, just awesome. But Dave's building my board now, and he wants to use his power supplies, and they look great, and they will take 120 to 240. You can plug them in anywhere in the world. So I'm like, that's cool. So I'm going to use his supply. Great things to say about the G-Labs. I've never had a problem with those, but I don't think they're universal. I don't think you can take them overseas and use them like that. I might be wrong about that. I hope I'm not giving bad information, but look at the Friedman power supplies. They look really, really nice, and that's what he's using on all his, obviously, on his builds that he makes for people. Somebody says preferred action height low. Thoughts on Jimmy Page? That's from Austin. Jimmy Page is amazing. He's not the I didn't get Jimmy as much in the when I first started playing guitar. It was like I thought he was sloppy or something, and then I realized that is so not important for he's a master layerer of guitar parts, and then also compositionally it's like the Rain song. It's like, oh my god, just incredible the way he hears things. So I love the way he hears things and layers parts, and I really think of him as a composer more than a guitar player. And then the guitar is just like, kind of like his, like when you watch him play, he might hit every 2 out of 3 notes cleanly, but then he's on to the next idea, and it's like a flow of ideas, and it kind of doesn't matter. It's like it's so perfect. Yeah, I love it. Let's see. The higher action, the greater the sustain. That can be true. Yep. Generally speaking, high action equates to good tone, but if you can't play it, then the tone's not going to be great because your playing's going to suffer. So it's a balance. Let's see. Phil Smith says, it's a question you asked 20 to 25 minutes ago, but I'm behind in the chat. Ask me again, Phil, because I'm sorry I'm missing your question here. Have I tested the Swedish Olsen amps? I have not. I haven't seen those. Does pineapple belong on pizza? Yes. I'm going to go with I'm all good with that. Although it's a thing. The Hawaiian pizza is something that once in a while it's like, yeah, I feel like the Hawaiian pizza tonight. I don't eat a lot of pizza anyway because I can't eat gluten. So it's rare for me. A rare treat. Find a gluten-free pizza. Yeah, the chat, man. Jumping around again. I'm really sorry, guys, if I missed your questions, but I just realized that I'm so far up on here. I gotta get down lower. Jeff Beck. Love Jeff Beck. He's awesome. Yeah, I'm just backing up a bit in the chat here, trying to not miss. Okay. Bear with me. What dictates what guitar would I use for a certain type of part, whether I would use a Tele over a Strata 335. That comes from R. Anderson. Is that you, Rusty? I don't think so. I think that, you know, it's just a weird, you're like, well, I want to do this kind of part, so I'm going to play this guitar. You know, like I want to do a kind of a clean, compressed arpeggio part that sort of sits in the background of something. I'm going to play a Strat in position 2 or 4. I don't know, you know, just like these things that you learn over the years, I guess. That's it. You know, I want to rock. I want it to be like a good core, crunchy rhythm tone. I'm probably going to pick up a Les Paul or something similar. Or, you know, and then obviously in my Sir model, I try and like capture a lot of those tones so that I can, in a live setting or in the studio, you know, play one guitar, get a lot of sounds. Okay, have I ever played with Jerry Cantrell? No, but I did go to his birthday party this past year, which was fun. He's a good guy. Never played with him, though. Let's see. Tell John to make the Sir amps more available in big European online shops. I will mention that to him. And maybe reissue the PT50. Just wait. Who inspired me when I was a kid? Well, I had some great teachers. A guy named Brian Hughes, a guy named Terry McDade. So they were always really inspiring to me because they were like musicians in my hometown where it wasn't like a thing to be a musician, generally speaking. It was like Edmonton was pretty blue collar back then, and it's like there wasn't a lot. I didn't know that many professional musicians. Also, my friend Al Remieux. These were guys that played in bands that were like, were instructors or whatever. They were older, they're making a living playing music, and that was always really inspiring to me to have like local people that that I saw, like, and they were happy. You know, it was like they weren't businessmen that were like grumpy at their jobs or whatever. It was like they were happy guys. All of them were like good, positive people that seemed to be really having a good time, like making music, and that was cool. For me. It was like seeing a window into like, wow, like life doesn't have to be, you go to college and you start a business. And I just wasn't interested in that. There's nothing wrong with that. I just personally, it wasn't resonating with me. I was like, I wanted to rock. I wanted to play guitar, and so those teachers and friends of mine that in my formative years were like, was influential, for sure. It made me see a way that I could do it. And like, actually, it's like, yeah, it is possible to play guitar for a living. Alex says, just tuned in. Hi from Austria. What's up? Man, I love Austria. Being in Vienna with Melissa Etheridge for the last time I was there, and going to some like outdoor market and getting amazing sauerkraut and stuff. Let's see. Great new interview on YouTube with Jimmy Pages, or Nick says. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. I mean, I love Jimmy. I've got, here, check this out. It's pretty cool. This is a book that Chris Cornell did a sit down with Jimmy at the Ace Hotel here in LA, and Chris invited me to go, and he asked me if I want to go. I was like, are you kidding? Of course. And he basically asked him questions about this book. This is a new book that many of the photos, I believe maybe all the photos are Ross Halfand's. Not all of them, I guess, because there's all kinds of pictures in here, but many of the photos, yeah, not all going to be Ross, but there's lots of Ross, and Ross had a lot to do with this book as well. Ross is an amazing, legendary rock photographer. But anyway, some amazing photos in this book, and Chris picked about, I don't know, maybe like 15 photos out of the book and asked Jimmy questions about the photos, and just said, tell us about this picture, and do you remember when it was taken, and that kind of thing, and Jimmy just told stories, and it was so cool. This is about, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and so they gave away the book to everybody that attended. It was just like, it was a theater. It was amazing. It was such an incredible night. I mean, just sitting there like in the 5th row or whatever, and Jimmy's right there and answering all these questions that Chris was asking. It was so cool. Let's see here. What do I struggle with solo-wise? Same thing as everybody, just how many notes to play, how many notes not to play, technique, and You know, it's like the same. I think we all go through the same stuff. Is the solo dumb? Does the solo suck? Is the solo cool? Hopefully. Um, Somebody says I'd freeze if I met Jimmy Page. It's George. I didn't freeze. He came to first time. Okay, so he came to a Cornell gig at the Astoria Ballroom in London. I think that's where it was, the old Astoria. Uh, and I walked into our dressing room like before I'd gone out to get dinner or whatever, and I came back. It was maybe 7 o'clock, like just an hour before the show or something like that. And I walk into the dressing room, and I remember Yogi, the other guitar player, was sitting there on his computer like this. And I just went, "Hey guys, what's going on?" And I turned and looked, and then right there in the corner was Jimmy Page standing there with Ross. And I was like, and I thought, well, I'm only going to have one opportunity to do this. So I went up and introduced myself and I said, "Would you mind if I take a photograph with you?" And he kind of hesitated for a minute and looked around, and I thought, oh no, I've said something wrong. I've made him uncomfortable, and he was looking for his jacket. He'd taken off his jacket, so it was on a chair. So he took his jacket and put it on and kind of straightened himself up in the mirror in the dressing room. And then he goes, "Okay." He just had to be ready for the photo. So I've got a photograph with him from that moment. I always remember that. I'm glad. Hopefully I didn't piss him off, But he was very nice. And then I always remember him sitting in the balcony for the whole show and watching us play. You could see him with his white hair up there we could see where he was sitting. And Chris has a song called "Arms Around Your Love" from the Carry On solo album. Yogi would play the solo in that song. And the chords are A minor to G to F, just like the solo in "Stairway to Heaven." So I remember Yogi stepping right up to the front of the stage that night and playing the "Stairway to Heaven" solo. I always admired Yogi, like he just had big balls, for stuff like that. He'd just go do it, and that was a really, really funny moment. But what an amazing night! It was a lot of fun. Okay, let's see. I'll take two more here and then I'll go because it's 12. We've been going an hour and a half already, so I gotta get going. This is a great question. What about "Comfortably Numb" makes it such an iconic song for guitar? Because the solo is so badass, and both solos, they're melodic and beautiful, and you can remember every note, I would say, probably even if you're not a guitar player. And so that's really important. It's like "Stairway to Heaven" is similar. You can kind of remember the licks and stuff and the melody, or "Hotel California." The solo, so melodic and amazing. That's what's amazing, is it's like, you don't always have to play a million notes. You have to play the good notes, and "Comfortably Numb" is a perfect example of that. Okay, excluding my Sir and a Les Paul, what's my favorite signature guitar? Geez, off the top of my head, signature guitar. I really want to play Ian's Sir, because it looks like super cool and versatile, and the neck is kind of amazing on it. It's got this kind of V, light V neck to it that I like so far. I love my Wolfgang's awesome. I played it this week for the first time in a while in a video. And it's got a thing, it's got a great high gain sound. I mean, it's just the basswood with the maple and those particular pickups, the Wolfgang pickups or whatever. It just has a great tone for solos. Okay. No, the question skipped around. Sorry guys if I missed anything. Answer or ask questions maybe in the YouTube video once it gets posted. You can just ask in there, and I'll try and respond. I'm going to take one more. Let's see here. Somebody says I would have ended on the Jimmy Page story. Okay, maybe I should end. Okay, one more question, and then I'll get out. Let's see. Gilmour, by his own admission, said his technique sucked. I heard him talk about his own playing compared to Jeff Beck once, and he was kind of being self-deprecating, and he was saying Jeff lives in a whole other world, like he's living on that edge all the time, and I do a different thing, and he was saying it in sort of self-deprecating way, but the reality is that I love both of those guys equally, and I think Gilmour his technique is he plays slowly, you know, but he's so deliberate and melodic that does it matter? Of course not. Like he blows my mind with the shit he comes up with, the tones and that. I really like Gilmore. I mean, I do. And more these days. You know, I think that whatever technique he's got or whatever he sure does use it to the hilt. You know. Okay, somebody says the solo follows the chord changes perfectly, talking about Comfortably Numb. That's it. You know, it follows the chord changes perfectly. There's breaks, there's rests, those bends that he does. It's emotional. It's like, it's a perfect guitar solo. You know, it really is. Okay, guys, I'm going to go. You can ask me more questions if you want, like I say, in the comments section below, and I'll try and get to those, check out the comments and answer those, and I'll be back here next week for more of the same. And hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Have a great week. See ya.